A few days later, the Peace Corps official called back and said, "Okay, you win." He told me that Peace Corps officials would visit Moldova at the beginning of the year. Not exactly a convenient time because of the Moldovan Christmas and New Year's holidays, but a time that I would ask Moldova to make available to Peace Corps. True to their hospitable, cooperative nature, Moldova made sure that the appropriate officials were available to discuss with its visitors from Washington the assistance that Peace Corps could offer and the terms of the country agreement. While privately, we at the embassy thought small business development was a priority, we were okay starting with English education. English education made perfect sense when we considered the growing need for English speakers, translators, and interpreters, as well as the specific contributions native speakers of English could make to English education. After all, the U.S. Embassy was not the only institution that had hired some of its personnel from the ranks of Moldova's English teachers, especially from the university nearby. It also made perfect sense when we considered that privatization had not yet begun and the legal framework for the support of private enterprise would take Moldova some time to develop. When representatives from the Peace Corps arrived in early January 1993, they met with officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Education to discuss the proposed program and to negotiate the agreement between Peace Corps and Moldova. At the conclusion of the visit, the formal country agreement was ready for signature. Signing on behalf of the Moldovan government was Ion Stavila, who was acting on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Before signing, he sat quietly for a long time, looking at the document. So long that I asked him if something was wrong. At first, he joked about finding no mention of responsibility for hot dogs and hamburgers. But then he replied seriously, "No, nothing is wrong. I'm just contemplating the historic moment, the historic nature of the moment. This is the first time I will sign an agreement on behalf of my country." I understood what he was feeling. This was indeed a solemn occasion for both of our countries. We each signed on behalf of our respective countries the agreement that opened the door for Peace Corps to send a director who would prepare to receive and train the first group of volunteers. By February 1993, Director Justine Murray had arrived, and she's here today to tell you her part of the story. By May 1993, she was ready to receive and train the first group of 25 volunteers. In August, President Snegor and I were invited to attend the celebration at the end of training. As we listened to the volunteers who spoke in Romanian, President Snegor leaned over to ask me again how long the group had been studying Romanian. He was impressed with how well the volunteers spoke Romanian after just a few short weeks in country. During my 3 years in Moldova, I enjoyed working with the Moldovan people. I found them hardworking, very sincere, and fun-loving. They seemed to like Americans, and as a result, we felt welcomed and safe here. I would walk around town, talking with people I met along the way. One lady, when I was talking to her on the street, one lady kept looking around as if she was expecting someone else. I asked her if she was waiting for someone, and she said, no, she was looking for my bodyguard. "Oh, do you think I need a bodyguard?" I asked. "No," she replied. "It's just that all VIPs have them." In reality, I did not think of myself as a VIP. I felt more like I did years ago when I too was a Peace Corps volunteer, working in what was also a fairly new country. Everything was new, everything was different, and very interesting. Like a Peace Corps volunteer, I did not always know what to do or how to do it, but my staff and I figured it out together, and we worked steadily to grow the relationship between our countries. We were able to offer Moldova a wide variety of technical assistance, which Moldova used wisely. As for Peace Corps, we'll be hearing today about their experiences, their partnerships, and their successes. When engaged in a program, it is common to wonder what difference one is making. Like any teacher or supervisor, a volunteer may never know that something he or she said or did inspired a student, a coworker, or a counterpart. The results might not be immediate or even realized until much later. But volunteers do have an impact, especially on young people. I can give you 3 examples. First has been my experience with people who come to Washington for professional reasons. While in town, they also want to reconnect with the volunteer who influenced them some 25 or more years ago. I would bet that this has already happened in the case of Moldova, because good relationships endure, often lasting a lifetime. And communications is better today than it was when I was a volunteer. Second has been my experience over the past 5 years volunteering with American Councils for International Education. Quite often I read in the students' essays some of what they learned through their contact with Peace Corps volunteers. They talk about their aspirations for the future, the encouragement they have gotten from Peace Corps volunteers, and sometimes about their surprise at the feel-good reward they get from trying some type of volunteer work themselves. A third example would be a young woman I met not long ago in Washington. She told me that she was one of the she was in our one of our first 2 groups of Flex students, the first 2 to participate in the Flex program. Students who were in contact with our first Peace Corps volunteers. She attributed her eventual success as a translator-interpreter to her experience with Americans, among them Peace Corps volunteers. Now, having exceeded my time, I will stop here so that others may tell their story. I trust that all of our current volunteers will follow in the footsteps of past volunteers and continue serving Moldova with energy, spirit, and imagination.